Hey everyone, this is week 3 tutorial for Photoshop for photography class. Today we're going to look at doing more complex selections and then what we can do with those selections, like cutting, pasting, but also increasing, decreasing opacity, messing with particular areas, manipulating the lightness and darkness of an overall area. So a bunch to cover. I'm going to try and get through it pretty quick. So here we go. Remember, the first thing you're going to do is create a document. So you would go up to File, New. Your preset is likely different from mine, but I like to start out with an 8.5 by 11 page just to guarantee that my piece is big enough, even if I need to print it. I can do that. For the most part, most of my work is digital these days, and that's how it's used. But every once in a while, you need it print. So the better case is to always make it print quality first, and you can always save a version of it in a lower quality, like a JPEG or usually it's a JPEG, but it could be something else. So now that being said, I have an 8.5 by 11 horizontal, you go vertical, whatever size you want. The biggest deal is your resolution. Your resolution is the pixels per inch. 300 pixels per inch is print quality, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. Color mode, keep it at RGB. Our computers read that, so it's going to give you the best rendering for what we're doing on the computer for the most part. The background contents aren't entirely up to you. I like a little white canvas, and then from there, we don't need to worry about the advanced options. So this is your dance space. Again, I'm going to give you a quick, just super quick tutorial, just a refresher from last time. The top bar offers you all sorts of options. The very, very top bar, at least on my computer, is your applications palette. That has all of the primary core things. So if I say select something, you're going to look up and say, oh, it's a pretty important thing to select. And it has all of the options related to selection or image or edit. Window is another one that you might use quite a bit. This palette over here to your left is the tools palette. When you select a tool, the options bar changes, okay? The options bar will always change to suit the tool that you have selected at the time. So that palette up there changes constantly. Imagine if you were a painter and you had a fresh palette for every sort of potential possibility. That's what we have digitally. That's what's so cool, I think, to me about Photoshop is I don't have to have all the resources in the world. I just need to have Photoshop. It has so many different things available to me to be creative and be an artist and not have to have millions of materials around me. Anyhow, so just friendly reminder about that. And then the panels on your right-hand side are all, again, sort of tools to some degree, or aspects that you might want to keep in mind. This top button up here is history. This is valuable as we go along and as you make changes and as you mess up. We all do. So when you want to step back, you can do that within your history palette. You can always close these things down, give yourself space on your computer. I have a relatively small computer, so I appreciate keeping my space open. The one palette you really want to always have available to you is layers, okay? Layers is how we bring in each piece of artwork, basically, or each image, each photo, okay? And, you know, this is just my personal practice. I know a lot of photographers may download their images, sort them, and actually work from their originals. I personally do not recommend you work from your originals. You always want to have that original file that you had pure, even if it's not perfectly pure. Do you know what I mean? Like if you make changes over time, that's fine, but you want to make sure that you have that original. So this is sort of my practice to always get you in the habit of creating a new document, bring your image into here, and of course you bring it in and you see it in the layers palette, okay? So this is kind of where we're at right now. And we're gonna learn a lot more about the layers palette, and I hope you'll, you may not play with it a whole lot on project 2, but I do feel quite confident you will absolutely use it on project 3. So, you know, these next couple of weeks, we're really going to more deeply explore this so that you all feel really, really comfortable with layers and how it works. Okay. So my layers palette, I'm going to keep it popped out just so you know, keep an eye on it. We need to bring in some images. So I actually thought I would work on some images that I took over this week. So I'm going to drag and drop from my desktop an image of a marble that my husband made. My husband is a glass blower, so I get to shoot cool photos of glass. This particular one I did not use. I'm not psyched with, which is why I'm going to get to play with it a bunch with you. And then the other thing is you might still be working on finishing project 1, right? So that being said, if you are still working on project 1, this part of it is important for you, okay? So when I dragged and dropped that in, you saw in my layers palette, it came in. The file name came in, an image came in, and we have a little smart object icon there. This time I'm going to do a bulk rasterize. Okay. When we rasterize something, we make it pixels. And we'll do all the smart objects at once, meaning all the photos that I'm dragging and dropping, we'll get to play with. So I also have an apple pear that I took. I have some, oh, I gotta hit enter just to set that baby. We have some grapes, wild ones. We have a picture of me, actually, we're gonna edit. And we have apples and honey. There we go. Actually, this is being used already. I didn't color correct it because I was pretty happy with it at the size I needed it. But there's always work to be done. So that being said, I just dragged in a bunch of images. Did you see? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And then the background. So dragging, dropping, dragging, dropping, dragging, dropping. That's my favorite way of bringing images in. There are other ways, okay? I don't want you thinking that that's the only way you can do it. If it's a pain for you, know that you can go up to File and Place, and you can actually embed an image from there, and it comes in similarly but different. It's sort of like you open it up as if you're going to add an image, you know, and that's exactly what you do. But I'm a drag and drop queen from way back, okay? The second they had that functionality on a computer, I was using it because I think it's a brilliant thing. But that being said, we need to make these smart objects pixels so that we can mess with the pixels and do stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my shift key, and this works with all computers, not just Macs. I'm going to hold my shift key and select the topmost one, and then hold and select the bottommost one, and you'll see that they're all selected at once. When I do that, I can then right click and I'll get my palette here, and about midway through you'll see rasterize layers, and that's exactly what we want to do. The last video I showed you how to do that one by one. This time I'm showing you how to do it as a group. Just trying to save you time. I'm not going to make you walk up a hill both ways in the middle of winter, but I'm going to show you a lot of options as to how to achieve each of these different techniques, okay? So that being said, now it's fair game. We can do whatever we want with these images. Now, I have a ton of images up right now. What am I gonna, like, how am I gonna focus? And I also don't know really which ones these are. I have pretty good eyesight, but I really have to look and see which is which. Thankfully, my one file name was file name apples and honey, so that kind of makes that one easier. This one, we're gonna say Trish And we're going to say dark. And this one is, and you double click on the word wild grapes. And you're like, Trish, why are you going through all of this? Well, the reason is that when you get to the project 3, I ask you to do like 8 layers or 10 layers minimum. You're going to run out of room, right? Like there's not that much room. And even if you drag it all the way top, you're going to run out of room. So you want to keep on beyond running out of room. It's easier for you to relate a tiny little apple photo if you're making tiny things with a name than it is to try and figure out, oh my God, what is that? I don't know. So just if you get into this habit, it's going to save you over time. Okay. So now I have these all named. And now I can also, this layers palette has a lot of options just on its own to play with. Okay. So one big thing is the eyeball. The eyeball hides a layer without you moving it anywhere, okay? So I can hide the honey, I can hide myself, I can hide the grapes, I can hide the apples, and now I'm left with the marbles and the background. Cool, right? So they're not gone. They haven't changed organizational pattern at all. Like they're all still in the same order structurally, like the apple is in front of the marbles, right? And if I use my little move tool, which is the 4 arrows, you can see the apples are in front of the marbles. I can select the marbles and you can see how you're starting to see that these things are overlapping each other, right? And they're overlapping and you can make manipulations with the layers. Okay. So if I want the marbles to be in front of the apples, there you go. Okay. And these are the only 2 we have awake right now, right? We only have the eye open on those 2. If we pop these 3 open above, they would pop in above the marbles and the apples too. I hope that's starting to help some of you make more sense of this layers palette, because I know it can be confusing, especially when you're first starting this program. So, let me know how that goes. Now, if I want to make a selection of this marble and I don't want anything else. I just want the marble. What do I do? Well, I could sort of futz around and use this eraser tool. Now notice when I hover over any of these tools for any period of time, they're going to tell me what they do. So if you have any questions, you can always just hover. It helps. There is a really great learning program within this. But I think having me prompt you is probably a little helpful too. So you could come along and when you select that, you'll see up in the top palette that there's sort of a little brush size. Can increase its brush size. One way you can test it is by kind of increase its brush size, bring it over. Increase its brush size, bring it over. Hardness, what does that mean? It's the difference between drawing with a ballpoint pen, very finite line, very tight, very perfect and aligned, versus a spray can of spray paint. It's kind of really diffuse, very soft. Both of those things are valuable in photography and art. So just keep that in mind. 100% hardness, ballpoint pen on a ruler. When you're going 0 hardness, you're using a spray can from 1.5 feet away. Really soft, really diffuse. Okay. In this case, I just want to show you how to do this. So I'm going to increase this a lot more. And so I could do something like this. Look at that. Not too shabby. What happens when I get up close, right? That might not be as awesome. Now, there's all sorts of other fun things up there, but this is just me showing you. Oh, well, you could do that. But selection tools, you guys. This is where the magic can happen a lot faster. So the selection tools are these top 3 button areas. They each have buttons under them. We're going to go through them quickly. And then you pick your favorite. My favorite's at the end, PS. So if you want to scroll through, go ahead. I understand. The elliptical marquee tool gives you a perfect circle, or it doesn't give you a circle, it gives you an ellipse, right? So if you click and drag, you can try and approximate as close as possible that circle. You can go up to select and deselect those marching ants at any time when you're working with selections, okay? Control D is also deselect. So if you're more of a key commando like I am, Control D will deselect it, or just go up here and deselect. All right, now we need to get this like perfect. How do we do that? You hold your shift key. So you hold your shift key and you click and drag, and look at that, perfect circle. Holds its tolerance perfectly. Now I'm not right over the marble, but I can get like a pretty tight approximation. Now if that's pretty close, I can use my toggles, my arrows, and just move it in increments. And I know that's a little slow going, but it gets you pretty accurate. Now that's pretty good. I mean, if I was not worried about that edge, that might be fine, but I'm worried about that edge, so I'm gonna do it again. So deselect. The one more option for those of you that wanna get like a perfect circle, you can use your Option and your Shift key, and you work from the center of your object and you pull out and let go. And then again, toggle. All right, I got it. Yes, now what do we do with it? Well, I can copy it and paste it. So go up under edit, copy it, and paste it on a new layer if I wanted to. New layers, by the way, they live right down here, this little box with a plus sign. I could do that. See, when I clicked in, notice how it popped up right above marbles because that's the layer we're on. I could do that. I could say copy marble layer, copy, Control C, or go up to edit and copy, go to layer 1, and then paste, edit, paste, or Control V. And now you might not see it, but layer 1 is a marble. You like that? It's fun. So that's one thing you could do with it. Now I hid layer 1, which is the cut up marble. Now, what if I just want to keep the marble? That works too. So I'm going to go hold my Option and my Shift key again and toggle it over. Well, that's silly. I don't want to do that. What do we do when we have a really nice background that we can just cut out of? This is one of the tools we get to learn. So you want to skip the lasso because the lasso it makes me angry. The quick selection tool. It's a great tool. It finds the edges of the objects in the image. So we want that one. Because what we want to do, and see the palette, it changes. We want to create a selection of the white area because we're going to delete it, right? That's basically what we want to do. So, but we want to increase the selection area size. That's better. So now I'm going to click and drag all the way around this. Oops, let me just click and drag from that area. Oh my gosh, that went pretty fast. Look at that. Now I see some overlapping areas, so I'm going to use the minus tool here just to come along those edges. And it will pull it back to its selection. Fun tool, right? This is magical. And the closer up you are in this tool, the magnifying tool is right here at the bottom. If we click on that, and the closer up you are to your artwork, to your image, the better you can make your selection. Obviously, the better you can see it, but the better you can make a selection, which is pretty awesome. Or I think it's awesome. Hopefully you do too. Now to bring it back out to view size, if you push Command and 0, it'll bring you back out to view state. You can also go to view and you'll see all of these options sort of right in here, okay? Right now you'll see that I have marching ants, the dotted line on the outermost area of the white that we have not used, and then we have the marble. That means the marble is not selected, okay? It's the white area in between that's selected. So when we click delete right now, the white area goes away. and then you go and deselect it, and you can see, ooh, we did a good edge. Look at that. And so that is, this marble right here is using your quick selection tool and deleting the white areas. This marble, which is a little bit cleaner because we're working with that perfect circle, that's the one we did a selection, a copy paste into a new layer. Okay, so however it works for you, whichever works for you, I just am psyched that you're working with it. Okay, so now I have two different marbles, and you can, as you can see, I can name them the same thing. It doesn't, they don't keep track of how many you name the same thing, just as a warning. But let me just show you again. So now I can move this marble. I can turn the other marble on. Now I have two marbles to work with. Oop, you can see I have some extra stuff that I didn't get dealt with before. I can use that eraser again, as long as I'm on the right layer. And notice I can be on that layer erasing stuff, the marbles layer, and the other marbles layer and all the other stuff is not affected by that action. So now remember that free transform, Control T, or edit free transform. That's where you can still have lots of fun here, right? I can take and increase or decrease the object, hit enter when you're done. And we can really play with these. Control T and rotate it. Fun times. Now, let's see, what are some other things that we would need to know here? So I want to also help you understand, in terms of selection tools, you don't necessarily have to use it to cut out an object. You can use a selection tool to make a very specific change. So let's look at these apples here for a minute. Now, they're perfect. Their general area is well focused, but I want to bump up the vibrancy of the apple on the left, and I want to gray out the apple on the right. How do I do that? So we're going to use those selection tools again. Now the circle would be great, except it's not a perfect circle. So that quick selection tool I showed you, golly gosh, look at that. Click, drag, let go. All of a sudden, I have a lot of that area selected. Now, I don't want any of that wood, right? So I'm going to tighten my selection area up by zooming in, by maybe decreasing the size of the tool and going back and forth between using the plus and the minus to get your selection area really tight. I know, easier said than done. But with this tool, it's amazing how quickly you can make a selection. So I have this apple and I want to make some adjustments to it. So when I talk about vibrancy, when I talk about saturation, I'm talking about the most bright color that I can get out of the image, and also what is the highest potency of color that I can achieve. And so if that's what I'm going for, then that's what I'm looking at, is saturation and vibrancy. And you can do that in two different ways. We have one of these tools, which is about midway down in the toolbar, maybe a little lower than midway. It looks like a little sponge. Sometimes it hides behind the dodge and the blur tool, but a sponge. And it increases or decreases the saturation of the color that we have going on here. Now, it's not going to magically polish the apple, but it is going to bump up the color. So when I check that, when I select that tool and I go up to my options palette, soft brush is always helpful to be realistic on things, okay? On people, you use soft brushes. On organic things, for the most part, anything with curves, you want to try and use probably a softer brush. In this case, we don't want to desaturate this one. We want to saturate it. The flow is at 50%, which is pretty strong. I don't know that I want 50. Maybe I want a quarter, 25%. I can also change its angle. I do want it to affect its vibrance. So that's where we're at. I'm gonna make this brush much bigger and almost like get it so that it's similar in size to this apple. And you can see right away that I can kind of color it right in. And I can keep going over it, and it's going to continue to increase in saturation of color and vibrancy as well. Look at that. Now I can really push it. I can be extreme. It's not really my intent of any photo at any time, but artistically, I'm always, you know, I love trying out these tools and knowing what they do and then pushing it too far. I encourage that. That's how you become, you know, really knowledgeable about a program. Really play with it and try out your ideas, see how you can make them come to fruition. So now there's my apple. And when I deselect, you can't tell I manipulated it other than you guys saw the original. Do you want to see? When we go back in the history palette, we can actually go all the way back to before we messed with it. Can you believe it? There you go. Kind of nuts, right? And I mean, obviously, I probably would have stopped after that first sponge because that's pretty significant anyways, but look at that, how it pushed it. It's pretty great. So I'm going to leave it actually at this one. And now I'm going to deselect from here. And that's how the history palette works. You can just kind of click back and kind of step backward to where you think you saw something or where something might have gone right or wrong for that matter. Let's select this other apple. Oh, I don't have a layer picked. Let's pick your apples layer. Close my history. Select that area. Oh, that was a quick one. All right, so we're going to just get rid of that little area right there. Beautiful. And in this case, we're going to go back to that tool, sponge. And we're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to desaturate. And in this case, we just want it to go, we want the color to go away completely. All right, so we're just looking at decreasing it entirely. Now, you can see that you can go a little further if you want. You could leave certain areas color. Some colors could go away. This one makes it look something like a piece of marble almost. That's pretty interesting. So I can do this and there you go, deselect. Let me just show you the original versus what we just did. Whoa, went way too far back. Hold on. The originals. The new ones. So you can see how being able to select an area can be a really tremendous thing, right? I encourage you to play with some of these other selection tools if you want. I gave you my favorite, and these rectangle and elliptical ones are also very useful for general areas. For the most part, I almost exclusively use that quick selection tool. I'll use the magic wand tool from time to time. The object selection tool is pretty good too. It's all about what works for you in terms of selection and getting what you need. I have one more selection tip for you, just so that you're aware of it. So we'll do this on the apples because it's here. And I want to make a hole in the apple. And I want the hole to be really soft edge. How do I do that? Well, I select the elliptical marquee tool, and you'll see in several of the palettes, of the option palettes, feather. When you see feather, you want to do the feather first. You have to set the number you want first before making your selection. If you make a selection and then change the feather, it will not apply to the selection. That's an important thing to know about feathering. You must do it first. So I'm going to make a big feather, 25, maybe I'll even go big, 50, make it extreme so you can see it. So I'm going to hold my shift key and my option key and bring a little circle out. And I am going to just click delete. Fun, right? This is how you make vignettes. If you do social media at all and you manipulate images on a phone and you use Instagram, you use Facebook, more Instagram than Facebook. Facebook's filters are no fun. Instagram, Snapchat, I think Instagram has some of the most realistic changes that you can make in terms of photography because it was created to do photography, but you know, vignettes, highlights, fadeaways, all of that stuff, everything can be done on here as well. And in fact, was done before this is how it was done. It was exactly like this. So I can make selection somewhere else, do the same thing. The filter feather, that feather effect is going to apply until you change it back or you make it something else. So in this case, if I make it 25, you can see that it changes. Or if I do 10, you're going to see it really change. So you see how feather works. Okay, and you can do it in reverse. You could make a selection and you could say select the inverse and then click delete, and you're left with the inverse of what you've selected. So keep that in mind, my friends, and we'll move to another picture. So we have these marbles, and they are their own little entities right now. So I can really play with them in a different way. They're already little solo objects. So marbles too. What can we do with this? So I'm going to mess with the palette a little bit, the layers palette. And we can do all sorts of different effects to the marble. Right now, there's nothing behind it, so we can't do a whole lot of these features. I just want you to see that there's things under there. We can drop the opacity of a marble. So this marble, when I put it in front of the bigger marble, you can see through it, right? So the opacity is at 71. I can drop it way down so it looks very ghosty. Now, let me bring that back up. Now I can, you see all of these little guys down here on the lower palette. If I click the trash, it's going to send the layer I've selected to the trash. If I create a new layer, it's going to create a new layer right above the layer I have selected currently. Groups. Groups are great when you need to keep little file folders of parts of your work. Like if you need 5 layers of pennies, do you want to fill up your whole layers palette with 5 pennies? No, you can have this come in, you literally can drag it and drop it, or just click it, better yet. And you can actually drag and drop the images, the layers that you want in there. So this is the marbles group. Okay. And I open and close, you can still hide them. The benefit of a group like this is you can actually just click the hide button and it will hide all of it at once. Okay, getting back to our little marble that has no opacity right now. Let's bump it all the way back up. Okay, so now we have our marbles group and we've done all these things. Now the next thing over gives you new fill or adjustment layers. This can be helpful when you want to make an application to an entire layer or a selected area of a layer. Okay, so this one's fun and interesting. Here we go. When you select it, it'll give you your options. In this case, we want to increase its, we'll increase its vibrance anyways because of what we're doing, but we're going to mess with its hue and saturation. This is going to look a little daunting. Just play with it. You're going to figure it out as you go along. For me, I want to just simply increase my saturation so the colors pop. I want to make sure that I actually want to decrease the lightness a little bit and see how that looks. No way, we're going to increase the lightness. Look at that. That looks awesome. And I don't want to push it so far. And this is, again, this is for me because I am in, in this profession of helping others to, sell. I need to make sure that the work looks accurate. I can't have the color be so off from a product that people, when they get it, are sort of put off. They're like, no, this is not the color that was presented to me. So I want to, be honest with that. But this is where you can play with this. You can also, if you really wanted to, you can actually change the color very quickly just by changing hue. These are like night and day, right? Now, notice how as I'm doing all of these effects, it is affecting the marble right behind it. Now, that could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your intention, right? This is going to come up for you all at some point, which is, I'm not getting, like, when I do this effect, I really love it on this image, but this layer is getting it too. When you use adjustments, they are a universal thing from anything below where it's being used. So right now I have the hue and saturation up here. It's going to affect anything below it. So these two marbles, and if we pop something into the background, it's going to be there. So keep that in mind. Now, what if I don't want that second marble to have this effect? I want the original marble, right? What you do is down here, and this is with any adjustment layer, by the way, okay? This is not just for this one. This is for brightness and contrast. This is for posterizing it. This is for doing any adjustment to any layer. You click on this little button right here, this box with the arrow and the slash, hover over it and you'll say, oh, I think I might have hovered it too much. Come on. Anyhow, when you click on that, what it does is it links, and you can see in the palette here, it sort of links right to the layer below. And now all of a sudden, if you look, right, that effect is only affecting that one layer. That technique, when you do that, is essentially locking the adjustment layer. Okay, you clip it. So keep that in mind. If something's weird and funky, this is the spot you go for, okay? And then I can do the same thing with the other marble, okay? I could go down to our adjustment layers and I could mess with something else. I could, again, do that other effect of black and white. Now, dropping saturation out of an image, making it black and white through dropping saturation is fine. This is actually a very powerful tool for those of you that really like black and white. You control what aspects of the photo are black and white or gray. You could make green white, or you can make green black. You can make cyan black, white. And again, this may not matter to you right now, but when the time comes and you want to manipulate something, here you go. There it is. Okay. And again, you want to, if it's applied, if this layer adjustment is applied to just this one marble, make sure to click the little box with the arrow so we clip it to the layer. Okay. All right. Next up, we've got one more to play with, and then we'll be done for the day. So I'm going to hide the marbles group. And we are going to pull in, let's see, we'll pull me in, turn me on. There we go. All right, so I took this photo and I was in the dark. I was really trying to get some color, but it wasn't working. I did get good focus though in general, but I want to mess with some things here. So we can start first with one of my favorites, which is called levels. I'm going to do that adjustment layer, levels. What you do with levels is you set your pure black point in the image, which I want that black point to be back in there, and the pure white, which would be the whites of my eyes. Whoa, too much, right? Let's go back. I could select another area to get the pure white, maybe back in here. You can see how choosing one area actually changes the color of my face, the tone of my face overall. And it will change everything in the photo. So this is one of those places that instantly is helpful when you're looking at an image. If we were doing this class in person, I would be standing behind you in your computer and looking at your image with you, and we would be doing this. And you could see, and this is another nice thing about these adjustment layers, you can preview what the changes are. So I can look at the original, and then I can look at the adjustment. And I like that, because the reality is my hair is really, really dark. And this is actually lighter than what my real tone is. This is closer to the tone of the gray that I was wearing. My hair totally has pink and purple in it. So that's that. So I've gotten it to a much closer place for me, for my image, and I'm going to lock that levels in place. Now, I could also do some cool stuff if I wanted to. Let's say I want to bump up just the color of my lips. So let's go use that fun little tool we had before. And it works just as well on people. Now I can, seeing myself up close, special. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop, let's see, I have too much of an area selected. So I need to drop my brush size. I'm going to add my lips back in. I'm going to get rid of some lips. And add it back in. It's sort of like sculpting potatoes, maybe. You can manipulate it a lot. Okay, so I've got my lips here, and I can take this. This is how cool this can go. I can take and set a new adjustment layer, and I can set it for vibrance. And the vibrance layer is only going to affect my lips. Watch this. So I clicked on the lock button, so it only affects this layer. But watch as I increase. And I can really make it extreme. I don't need that. But if I wanted to, I could. And then again, we can look at what I had before, which is like literally nothing, to these really sort of salmony pink lips. I'm not going to go that far. That's a tiny touch. Maybe a little bit more. There it is. I like that. Cool. And that's literally how that's done. So now that's locked, and it's just my lips. And we're done with that one. Now, all right, now I've got those layers, those levels, and I'm very happy with that. Now, just in general, I want to soften my face a little. Oh, I got a lot of focus, and I love what I've done with my eyes, but I want to soften some things. So how do we do that? There's a couple tools here you're going to love. We've got spot healing, healing brush, patch tool. These are all really good ones. Now, spot healing is fun because and I have plenty of spots to play with. So one thing I can do is sort of just click and drag. If I have little tiny blemishes, if I have red spots, I totally have rosacea from my allergies. So there's certain spots I just know where to look, and I can click and drag. It just doesn't look great either. Got a little spot there. Look at that. You see how quickly you can sort of like boom and go. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get those. Oh, yeah, that's not bad. I don't like that one though. Let's go back in history. can go. So this is the spot brush. If I wanted to, I was doing that like in a lot of detail. I could actually take the actual healing brush, make it much smaller. What you can do is you can get a selection area that you like and work from it. And you can see it's changing it quite a bit. I like the spot because I don't need too much changed here. I just want to touch it up. So that's in there. We're going to go through these much more. I'm just trying to give you some things to play with, especially as we come up on this new project. Beauty is in the eye. That there might be things you want to touch up, let's say. All right, not bad. And then if you go back, you can see that I actually did a lot of stuff. Tons, actually. So this is where we started, and that's where we ended. That's not so bad. I like where we went. Now, again, I could keep pushing this further and further. Over the years, I've done really highly manipulated images for clients. I can, you can take somebody's body and put it on their head. You can tighten their eyes. You can completely manipulate the structure of their face. For those of you that, again, like Snapchat or Instagram or any of the TikTok, any of them, they have the ability to manipulate your face in pretty extreme ways already. So I like to think of Photoshop as how subtle can you be? How can you manipulate in a way that is the most effective for your work? In this case, in this particular project, it's probably going to be less is more. Project 3 is going to be more is more. So, just keep that in mind. I hope this tutorial was helpful. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to inbox me. Be well.